Ready? Let's go. Call the Bryant Board of Zoning and Adjustment Monday, June the 8th, 2020. It is 6:40. Boswell Municipal Complex, the courtroom. Please silence or turn off your cell phones. Secretary, call the roll, please.
Staton,
Here.
Brunt,
Here.
Benfield,
Here.
Johnson,
Here.
Irwin,
Here.
opposed absent. Burgess,
Here.
Mayfield,
Here. Okay. First item is approval of minutes of our BZA meeting for 2/10/2020.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
At this time, DRC report. Rick, would you please read that?
Okay, this is the DRC report for the Bryant Board of Zoning Adjustments. Spring Hill Cottages, Springdale Road and Spring Hill Road. Hope Consulting requesting recommendation for approval of variance on PUD restriction. There is no recommendation from the DRC.
Okay. At this time, we'll go to a public hearing. Spring Hill Cottages, Spring Hill Cottages, Springdale Road and Spring Hill Road, requesting approval of variance on the PUD regulation. The information was in your packet. At this time, Trish, you want to discuss this item?
Yes. Sorry, I apologize. I'm still getting organized. So this is a proposal for the variance. I think it's important to understand that right now the request is to look at the variance and understand those, and requesting whether those get approved or not will determine whether the rest of the site work being the plans and whatnot are created. So we're not here for a site plan approval. I think that's the point I'm trying to make. And we're here to understand the variance request and what happens to that. So that's the proposed drawing as it sits now. As you know, our PUD regulations, we went through those probably about a year ago, maybe a little more, and changed some things there. It had a couple additional requirements with it as well. One of those is open space, and that's what you're seeing on track A there, is the request for open space. The other thing, and it's one of the variances that they're asking for, is there's a minimum requirement for a residential PUD of 3 acres. This is under that size. And then it's also the lot size and area requirements. The other thing that they're requesting is to use the rural road section on Springdale. They are going to do the factory improvements, on Spring Hill Road, moving forward with that. So yes, those are the waiver requests, and those are the portions that step away from the PUD regulations that we have now.
Sure, can you explain you said the acreage requirement.
Correct.
How many acres is that?
That lot is.
Can you tell us the difference between what the requirement is and what they're at?
Yeah, the requirement is 3 acres, and I believe that lot is on 2 acres. It is, yes, that's correct.
And the lot size is another issue, is that?
Correct.
Is that part of a whole plan there that they've already built out?
No, so this is all new.
That's all-
So, Colton, can you show us the GIS image of that? And I think that'll give you an idea of where it's located and what's located on site now. And I apologize, usually I try to start more organized, but
So all of it is just south of Remington Place.
correct.
While we're killing time and people looking at their phones, it's nice to have the city council remain here while we want to go to our meeting. You know how you be here, but thank you for coming. You can stay as long as you like, because the lights are turned off.
So Lee,
The party's over.
to jump back to it, the lot size and area requirements that are, that section of the PUD, it's actually, it's sort of a residential density. So, you know, with PUD, all of the normal zoning setbacks and things like that, go away, and we work with the developer to devise sort of a new plan that meets that. And part of that is meeting these residential density requirements, and that's what it doesn't meet. And those are calculated by doing a equation based on housing units, developable land, and then common usable open space. So that is, this is Remington Place subdivision right here. And so the piece of property that we're talking about is that one right there. And it sits like it shows on the map. So the street is located here, that comes out of the development. It runs north and south.
So PUDs are rezoned, what's the current zone?
Current zoning is R2,
That's
I believe.
the current zoning of that tract. so
Yes.
it's-
Yeah, I think it is. It is R2.
So how many lots should be in that property to meet these standards,
Yeah, so,
guidelines?
the density requirements, so it actually uses this acronym as a DUA, a residential, what they measure the development for. So it's a per development acre, dwelling units per development acre, a DUA. And the single family regulation for that is 7. So that's what it's set at right now, is the most you can do. And I believe they are at I think it's a 10 or 11.
With
17
17 lots.
Right.
17 lots. So 8 per acre?
Right, per acre. Like I said, it's done via calculation, and part of that is by also calculating in the common space. That is-
So how many lots, how many lots can you have on that size of property?
So it fluctuates, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to dodge your question. It changes depending on how much common space you put into it. So the common space, think of it as like open green space.
So putting 17 in there is quite a bit, makes it very,
Well, I believe that's 17 lots. Correct.
very tight. What size houses?
I believe the building footprint of the houses, hopefully, the developer can answer that when
Hey,
he comes.
Jonathan, would you come forward, please?
Thank you, Jonathan Hope with Hope Consulting. Yeah, I'd be happy to try to answer some of the questions.
Take it off.
Okay, so again, we're proposing to do a PUD soon. We've got a couple of these variances we need to address before we move forward with the actual development, doing site plan, design plan, and so the project won't happen if we can't get some of these issues resolved. You know, the purpose of a PUD is, you know, to allow flexibility. All these projects can't fit within, you know, these specific zoning districts. That's why we have them in town. Sage Creek, Prospect Park, those are PUDs. You know, I've come in through the years and done a lot of these PUDs, and the new code has some rules in it that, you know, some of these other PUDs in the past, you know, wouldn't have been approved. You know, for example, it was mentioned the area requirement. You know, just a few years ago, it was half acre was the minimum requirement for PUDs. So I'm not sure how we got to 3. I know we don't see a lot of PUDs. I don't think Brian's inundated with, you know, PUD proposals. So 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5 acres that have been a problem. So I'm not really sure how, in the past, when it was half acre, and it even said in the old code, half acre or smaller parcels is defined justifiably. So that was 50 years ago. So, this piece of property, we did bring it into place in 2006. We left this piece out specifically then for commercial. Is what we were thinking. One day this would be, a gas station, a strip center, a storage facility, something commercial, nail salon, who knows? I think this use would be better suited for that location. We've already got dollar stores, gas station just up on the road on similar corners. I think this would work here. I think this would be good. It's already residential. The developer's thinking something like Andre's Gardens, the small development in the back of that is, really, really nice little house. So I think he's looking at 1,000 to 1,300 square foot, very nice permanent homes in this. So that, I think, maybe addresses the area, the 3 acres, if you have questions about that one specifically, before I go on to the next one.
Okay, so you're saying 1,000 square feet per house?
Yes, sir. I think that's my minimum, and he's looking at 13.
What's the average square footage for Remington Place?
I think they're probably more like 1,800 square feet.
With this,
And, yeah, I mean, absolutely, there are homes up there, probably 2,300, 2,400 square feet.
would this affect their value?
I don't think so. I'm not an expert on that. I would lean back to Ken and Lance on that.
If I could interject real quick, I'm sorry. Just part of the conversation that's occurring here for these variances isn't the PUD itself, and I understand there's a certain distinction there, but we would, if the variances got approved, they would come back at that point, produce a PUD zoning and a PUD site plan to go with it. So the square footages of the houses and things like that, although I understand are important for the context of the conversation, I just wanted to make sure that we were on point, that the topic here is the variances and not specifically a lot of the site development work, of which will come later.
And it would be a hearing.
Correct. It would be a rezoning hearing, which would have another public hearing at that point, and the public would have another opportunity.
So this is just to allow them to request a PUD zoning, to make application for one with a tract of land that's less than 3 acres.
And meets the residential, the DUA calculations, the residential density marks. So like I said, the code right now has it sitting at a 7. Colton was able to do some quick math for me, and the number they're sitting at right now is actually at a 10.5. So I think I said 10 or 11. But so those are the things, and then also the Half Street improvements on Spring Hill.
Will Half Street improvements be done on Spring Hill?
Yes. Yeah, I think.
Okay, yeah, absolutely, I'll move forward. Okay, it's to address the Springdale, open ditch. I think it was 2011, when we did the phases of Remington along Springdale, there was discussion with the planning and Jill Dabbs about, that staying, open ditch, similar to Johns Wood, Road where we did Cambridge Place, Johns Wood Village, and then recently I think it was Auburn Hills or Autumn Hills that came through just a few months ago. So Springdale, when we came through in 2011, did the final few phases of Remington. It was addressed at that time with planning and Mayor Dabbs to leave that as, at least on that project, the master street plan is completely different. This is adjacent to Remington where we had that open ditch development. So that's the reason I'm proposing this is, we're adjacent to that development and that's what's been done there previously. So we would like to propose to stick with that.
That whole road that way.
And the whole road is that way.
Okay.
As far as the lot size area requirement, equation, ratio, new rule, again, this is a rule that we would have had to ask for, on the PUD stuff, I just don't know, you know, what the purpose of it was, because we've got lots of great PUDs here in Bryant previously that didn't have to fall into these type of rules. So I'm sure it has a reason behind those. I'm sure there was discussion, just like we got a workshop previous to this, but, you know, I think this is a viable project that could work, but there's a point at which, you know, it obviously they don't, and, you know, have the developers move forward with the project.
Any other questions by the planning commission? Okay, let's open up for public comment. Would like to speak for or against the request?
I'd be interested in what, Mr. Benfield has.
Report. State your name. Please give it.
Please sign in, please.
Russ Littleton. Be interested in what Mr. Benfield would have to say about the, property value of our neighborhood in Remington with 1,000-foot homes compared to 22 to 2,600. New one just built recently that's over 3,000 square foot in our neighborhood.
Well, since we're sticking to our technicality that this is for approval of a just the ability to go to a PUD, that would be questions I think that would be addressed at the actual PUD hearing to rezone. You know, I think this property is located in what we call a pod location. We have some commercial pods in our comprehensive plan. Where's Trudy? Am I not correct?
Correct.
So here's your option on that. I mean, it's either gonna be rezoned to commercial. I mean, it could be turned down, but it meets our comprehensive plan to be a commercial lot. And if we turn it down, I think, I mean, there could be implications, but I mean, we've done that. So you're either gonna have a commercial, which would be in our new zoning, a C2.
That would be, the new zoning would be a C1.
Today's zoning would be a C2,
Correct.
which would be convenience store. I guess you could do a car lot or anything else like that.
Our C2 is very broad.
If this zoning changes, it would strengthen that up a little bit, make it a little more stringent. But it's still gonna be some type, I don't think we're changing our comprehensive plan with this zoning, are we, Truett?
I'm sorry?
We're not changing our comprehensive plan with this zoning, are we?
No, not this one.
So I mean, right now, that comprehensive plan stays in place. It doesn't define the zoning, it just says that it's a commercial node. You know, if a convenience store was to locate there, is that better or worse than some smaller homes?
Big red.
Yeah,
I mean, it's.
It's got one right down the street, so that happening is not big, but, I mean, when you look at that, if you've actually been out to that piece of property, 17 lots like that, you're looking at 25 to 30 foot wide shotgun houses.
I mean, I was involved in a development called Andrews Gardens, which they mentioned, and there's large houses all around it. I'm not gonna give an opinion here on what I think. It depends on what's built there and what type of use and all that. I mean, Andrews Gardens is very nice, very large homes around it.
Answer your question before you leave, are you speaking for or against this?
Against it.
Thank you.
But Truett,
And specifically against changing the ordinance to allow someone to ask for a variance to go from 3 acres to 2 acres to do a PUD.
Yes, sir.
Do you live in close proximity to this, or which,
I do. I live off of Remington.
do others in your area feel similar to this that you talked to, or?
I believe so. I think there's some.
Right here, we do.
There's some that couldn't make it, so.
But you understand what's happening tonight, don't you? I mean, tonight, we have to decide whether we'll give them a variance to even come in. Then there'll be another public hearing
Right.
where all these items you're asking about value and setbacks and open space and how you're gonna handle traffic would be
Right.
addressed.
We just want to hit this at the very beginning.
I get it, but I just, tonight, our answer is we either say, yes, you can come back, or no, you can't.
Okay. Thank you.
Is that right, Trish?
Correct.
Okay.
And there's 3 issues, correct? I'm still
Now,
confused.
and you need to specify the issues, because I'm looking at the comments, it says, placing a small subdivision in a a location that is right off a major intersection would become troublesome with traffic flow. The requirement for density on a single-family residential PUD is 7 DUA or less, yet this property calculates out to just under 11 DUAs. And then you said last concern of the staff is section 15.4.1 of the PUD regulation. So I like some clarity as well.
You know, I think another thing to look at is the request from the applicant. And if you look at the letter that was sent, it's, you know, asking from the rural, yeah, that word, rural section, to improve Springdale Road, which I think the concern there is just, I think as staff, we understand that those areas are on maybe the further limits of Bryant, but as improved roads go, you know, I think it's important, we've got a master transportation plan, and those regs and everything are put there for a reason. The DUA that I keep bringing up, that's that residential density. And so that's the request to have a variance from that. And then there's the overall minimum lot requirement of a 3-acre lot, and this is a 2-acre lot. And I think the reason why both of those are sort of there is to dictate these residential density overall, so that your density levels, you know, it's not just people packed into a lot like that. There's a certain amount of separation.
So do we need to each request variance separately, or do one that covers it all?
I think that I'll leave that to the commission and whichever direction.
Because I believe Jonathan said that they did not want to do half street improvements along Springdale, correct?
I'm sorry.
They did not want to, they're requesting a variance to not do half street improvements on Springdale itself.
Correct. Not to the extent of master transportation. Yes, Paul?
I was going to say, if I may, I believe that if one of these is not met, or is not approved by you guys, or the commission, that means that the PUA cannot, or PUD cannot commence. Is that correct?
I think to a certain degree it'd be up to the developer if they can, I think the point being the 3 acres. Obviously, if you don't get past the 3 acres, then that's a problem. If you don't get past the residential densities, then that's a problem as well. So, you know, it's not like one can pass and the other one can't.
Why do we have 3 acres? Why did we change that?
It was so that you limit really the density levels that are in there.
Can a PUD have like 5 lots?
Yeah, a PUD can have as many or few lots as you want.
So why is it 3 acres?
Uh,
Why couldn't you have 2 acres with 10 lots or 2 lots?
I think it's just the relationship between the amount of property and then also the residential density levels. Part of that equation is the overall amount of acreage that a lot has. So if you had a 2-acre lot, it would make it more difficult for you to meet the density levels that are required later on in the application, later on in the code. So it's to sort of dictate a minimum density level in a PUD.
It doesn't make sense to me why.
So I think why we did that request is to approve the variance on multiple PUD regulation is the main part of this request. Any comment?
I think we're still in public hearing, so I'd love to get back to hearing from the public, and we can clarify at the end.
Okay. Anybody else that wants to speak that hadn't said anything else, positive or negative?
From the public?
State your name and where you live, please.
My name is Connie Stevens, and I live in Wilmington. I'm a new resident in the area, and I've been there for a few months, and I really like it over there. And the zoning area that the gentlemen are speaking of, with the housing project that I think that they're incorporating, I disagree with it, so I would rather not have, as large. And I was kind of listening to what you were saying about why can't you have a smaller rather than a larger density versus the size of the property.
What concerns you the most about this?
What concerns me the most is the sizing or the houses. Now, for example, sure, if there were just a few homes, then I don't think that would be a bigger problem versus 17. The flow of traffic, because right now, we don't have as much of a flow now. But when we are traveling home or going to work in the mornings, the traffic is heavy. And placing, I believe, another property on that corner there will make it a lot more difficult for, flow of traffic that way. I really don't think that, just my opinion, I really don't think that this development project should move forward as far as the large homes that they're trying to place there. That's just my opinion. And I think that I speak for a lot of us in the Remington area.
Thank you. Representative.
Anyone else for or against the variance request?
Oh, yeah, sorry about that. Councilman R.J. Hawk, I don't live in Remington, I actually live on Ozark, but seeing the number of people that have come, this is my ward, and as well as Star, and I know that we both have heard from not just a couple people in this room, but I've taken 5 or 6 emails from people that have been concerned about this property, from home value to, is it right for that area? And I understand that this meeting is only to move forward whether or not they should be able to come back, but I think that with the number of people that have shown up to this first meeting, I think that's the people of Ward 2 in that specific neighborhood saying, hey, do we really want this in our neighborhood? These are folks, much like what we just saw, that they just moved to the neighborhood with the thought that, I'm going to buy a $200,000 home, property value is going to go up. Is this going to affect? Now, I know none of us are appraisers in this room, or I don't think we are. We don't know that to be exact, but I do know that there is a lot of concern. I know Mr. Mayfield asked how much concern, how many people in the room are concerned about this property, and I know there's 5, 6, 7 people here. I've taken 6 or 7 emails as a councilman. So I just thought that maybe you might want to know that going into this, because that might hinge on your decision moving forward with this property.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Greg Moore. I'm a resident of Remington, like Russ and Connie. I'd like to address the board and request that you uphold the rules and regulations. I am, as even RJ said, opposed of this development. I think it would decrease our values of our house, our homes. I'm very concerned that it could be a midtown situation. No offense to anybody that lives there. And it could, again, decrease the overall residential value of the entire area. It could turn into rent houses, and then those investments that we made on our houses, we're hoping that the board would consider it. And I know we may go to another public hearing later, but we're asking the board to consider, or I am, our comments here.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Come back to the way I feel like we should do this, if it's agreeable to the commissioners, is to, if you vote to approve the variance on multiple PUD regulations.
Are you saying one vote for all three?
As Colton said, if one of them failed, they all fail. Is that correct, Colton?
Yeah, I think you could do the two variances, dealing with the density level, the overall size and then the density level. And then
That's PUD regulations.
correct, and then do the street separately.
Okay. But if the two fail for the density and the multiple PUD regulations, why would you even do the half street?
I'd like to come back and do something else.
Yeah, I mean, give the developer a chance to
That's
provide.
fine, we can change the PUD, we do should make, put 8 houses on that PUD instead of 17.
Do we want to hear from Jonathan or anything again? Jonathan, do you have anything else you want to add, or Joel?
Yeah, they have an opportunity to rebut.
Yeah.
Comment.
I'm sorry.
I'm Joel Green, I'm the one proposing the development. I built probably around 40 of the houses in Remington Place. You know, me and Jonathan worked on this property for years, trying to figure out what we can do with it. This is the only viable thing that we can figure out what to do with the property besides mini storages, which we don't want. The houses are gonna be based off the arbors, over in the back of the gardens. Colors, you know, kind of different looks. That's, the property values on a smaller house like that would be higher per square foot than our house would be. I'm gonna build every house in there. You know, I don't understand how, what's his name? RJ thinks that these people are living in smaller houses, they're gonna be worse than the people that's got the bigger houses. That's pretty much what he insinuated. That's just my feeling on it. And I'll answer any questions from you or him or whatever.
They're gonna be upscale, 1,300 square feet.
Yeah, I mean, they'd be nice, they'd be tall ceilings, you know, colorful, you know, they'd be nice houses.
Good call for square foot price.
I mean, I think you get $150 a foot, you get something small like that, to be honest with you. I know in Remington, what we started off selling those houses for, 110.
Yeah.
Maybe when we ended Remington, maybe we got 125 a foot for them. So, you know, that's, you know, it's not gonna be a slap in the face, you know, I can promise you. You know?
It's gonna be more of a custom home, so
Yes, it
not
is.
a
I'm not
trailer
saying
house.
no, it's not.
Very good. Everything you build's custom.
Yeah, you can, it's not a good job. That's about all.
I think the biggest question I hear is the number of lots.
Yeah, but I mean, and Jonathan can tell you, I mean, we're to a development culture right now. If I can't get 17, it can't work. I mean, you can't put a lot that small in and have almost $35,000 to $40,000 in a lot that small. That just, it's not feasible. You know, I have to keep that. And we've already given up, you know, so much green space just to try to meet the requirements. I mean, we're giving up a lot, and, you know, that, when it comes to that, you know, then we're gonna pay, you know, have that maintained. You know, it's a revolving effect on everybody. So, you know, we're just doing the best we can with that lot. You know, if that lot doesn't go residential, something like this, you know, it's gonna go commercial. I mean, I don't mind doing this story. I've always wanted one. You know, it is what it is.
Think, and I'm just thinking out loud, there's 3 points. One, the PUD, the ordinance says less than 3 acres, so that has to be addressed. I think you answered the second point I had a second ago, is they were willing, if you say yes, we'll accept the PUD smaller than 3 acres, then, you know, you either say, yeah, we'll turn down the variance for the density, but he would have the opportunity to meet the density requirements at that point. And the third one would be the half-street improvements, correct?
Joel, there's no other half-street improvements on that street, correct? I can't remember.
Springdale?
Springdale,
No, it's open ditches.
It's open.
yeah.
It's
Even the other entrance into Remington is open, correct?
Yeah, that's right, along with that.
Big, big open ditch.
It all went down to the end of it.
And there's differing opinions, Joel, all the time on what's best for the area, whether
Oh, I
it's
agree.
mini stores
Yeah, I
or
agree.
convenience stores.
Yeah.
I've seen developers that's been in here over the years we've done a continuance to where you actually meet with the residents
Yeah.
and see if there's a way to come up with an acceptable plan that everybody's on board with. I mean, is that something you're willing to do?
Yeah, I mean, maybe, you know,
I
whatever.
mean, I don't know if they're willing to do it.
Well, I agree.
We did that on LKQ, or tried to do it.
Tried.
Still flashing from that.
Anyway, I mean, I don't know, just looking for opportunities to answer their questions a little more. I mean, it's still about variances right now.
Well, I
in
agree.
PUD.
Any other questions for Joel? Commissioners, how do y'all want to handle this on breaking the vote down?
You almost have to go them individually, don't you? Three votes, you know, start with the road and then go to the other one and then go to the other one or something like that.
If I could make a recommendation for you, I actually would start with the two density levels. I'd answer the acreage number first, and then the density one next, and then the road one after that.
So we're in a lot size.
Or PUD being the 3 acres. And then the density level itself, can there be a variance from that? And then the way we're on the streets. And then one other thing I wanted to add about the streets is, that was under the old transportation plan, so part of the new transportation plan being Walk-Bike Drive. So since those 2 points, there's been a plan change. That was a piece of information that hadn't been said. I felt like it needed to.
So our first vote will be the minimum lot size for residential PUD.
Acre size or?
You mean minimum density?
Minimum density.
Acreage.
Oh, minimum acreage.
Please suggest.
So you're saying that they do not want to, at this time, meet our requirements for minimum?
Like, maybe a good way to say it would be, instead of meeting the 3 acre lot requirement, they would like a variance for the 2 acres in this zone.
So does yes grant the variance?
Yes, we grant the variance.
Okay, we got a
Let's take that vote.
roll call vote for that particular item,
Which item?
the 2 acres. You vote yes, that means that we're giving the variance to that, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
Mayfield,
No.
Burgess,
No.
opposed, absent. Penfield,
Abstain.
Brunt,
No.
Staton,
No.
Johnson,
Yes.
Irwin.
no. Did not pass. Now we're going to the density and the PUD based on our requirements.
I think it's moved.
You still want to ask about, they said we need to do 3 in a row, so,
Go ahead and take it.
okay.
I mean, that gives clarity to the developer what he can do to
Right.
move forward.
Changing the density that we're actually showing now, reducing put more lots on that PUD. If you vote for it, that means that you approve that variance. Roll call vote?
Mayfield,
No.
Burgess,
No.
opposed, absent. Penfield,
Abstain.
Brunt,
No.
Staton,
No.
Johnson,
No.
Irwin.
No. Third and last one is variance of requirement for half-street improvements along Springdale Road. They're asking that half-street improvements they will not be required to do those. You vote yes. Means we're not going, we will make them do half-street improvements.
Well, you vote yes.
Vote yes what now?
You're giving them
Yes,
variance.
yes.
Oh, yes, you're giving them.
Right, here and variance. You vote no, you're not giving them a variance for half-street improvements. Roll call vote.
Bryant?
No.
Staton?
Yes.
Mayfield?
Yes.
Burgess?
Yes.
Opposed, absent. Penfield? Johnson?
Yes.
Irwin?
Yes. So the variance is passed. Okay. At this time, we are going to close our public hearing for the Board of Zoning and Adjustments. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Let's move on, guys. Let's go on to the Bryant Planning Commission meeting. Call the Bryant, do we need to do a breakdown again?
No.
Bryant Planning Commission meeting, Monday, June the 8th, 2020, starting at 7:30. Boswell Municipal Complex, City Hall courtroom, call to order. Please silence or turn off your phones. Secretary, call your roll.
Staton?
Here.
Bryant?
Here.
Penfield?
Here.
Johnson?
Here.
Irwin?
Here.
Opposed, absent. Burgess?
Here.
Mayfield?
Here.
To my knowledge, are there any announcements that need to be made at this time for a planning commission meeting?
Census, please, everybody, we're still in the middle of doing the census. We're doing a great job of returning that, but we've got a couple of areas in Bryant that haven't filled out as well as others. I'd say if it's the biggest one being south of I-30 and west of Reynolds Road. It's one of our lower places, so any representatives that are from there, if you have any ideas on how to maybe reach that area better or get a better rate of return there. I think everybody, the rest of our tracks are at about 75%, and that track is, I think, in the low 60s. So we need to get better return there.
I think that's cookies would work.
Like that idea.
Okay. Any other announcements? Approval of minutes, special planning commission minutes for 5/21/2020. That we just had a couple weeks ago.
Motion approved.
Second. We have a motion second. Any questions? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
You have DRC report?
This is the DRC report. Bryant Family Pharmacy, Highway 5, Heritage Engineering, requesting requesting plat approval, recommended approval by the DRC. Bryant Family Pharmacy, Heritage Engineering, requesting approval for conditional use permit. The DRC has recommended approval. Modern Storage at 300 Dale Drive, White Gators and Associates requesting site plan approval. It is recommended contingent upon MTP changes for Dale Drive. Spring Hill Plaza sign, 4000 Highway 5, Gary Roach requesting recommendation for approval of sign variance. Approved location of sign, no recommendation for the variance from the DRC. The HOB, Heart of Bryant, zoning map changes. Truett Smith, Director of Planning and Community Development, requesting recommendation for approval for HOB zoning map changes. It is recommended by the DRC. HOB zoning code changes. Truett Smith, requesting recommendation for approval of HOB zoning changes, also recommended.
Thank you.
That is not it.
Oh, it's not fine. Be fast, man. We gotta move on.
Sorry, I had to change pages.
Flip them fast.
Bishop Park Festival Pavilion, Chris Street, Director of Parks, requesting approval for pavilion and site plan. It was approved. Car tag on Reynolds Road, LR Conway Signs requesting sign permit approval. It was also approved by the DRC. The Salty Dog at 519 West Commerce, Oxford Graphics requesting sign permit approval. It was approved. Now we're finished.
Okay. Any questions on DRC? If not, we'll move forward to the new business, Bryant Family Pharmacy with Heritage Engineering requesting plat approval. Are they even here tonight?
Yes, there's an engineer.
Yes.
Didn't recognize you back. Okay, that's what it is. Didn't have a mask, got a hat on.
If I could
request one thing first, just for their clarity. I think they're here. There's a request to add something to the agenda, and right now it's currently located at the bottom, and it's the request for a non-standard building approval. If y'all would either add that
I'll
or,
make a motion to add it to the agenda.
and specifically if it could be added at the end of new business. Right now it's stuck in the public hearing
That's my
section.
motion.
and it doesn't.
That's my motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Okay, we moved it forward to new business.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Colton, catch up here. You're good.
Before we move ahead, we can,
So the project that we have here is the Bryant Family Pharmacy, so this is a new location for them. And what's specifically in front of you, and something that we're looking at changing is the plat, so the site plan, it's good to go, we just need an approval of the plat. Also, I just want to mention, I think this is a really cool development, first of all, because you have an existing Bryant business here, moving and expanding. I think whenever you have that, that's a great sign. Really a great business there. So, the plat is what's in front of you. You see the site there. Well, we can bring up Hitch and show them where this site is at. It's on Highway 5, just over across from the old Freight building. So that stub out that you see on the west side of the property is what connects to that parking lot there. I think you can actually see some of that parking lot on the site.
We're just approving like a
Plat.
one lot subdivision.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
But at this time, DRC does not have the authority to do the plat.
Because it fits within the guidelines of DRC to approve site plan.
Yeah, it's a site plan. Site plan's good to go.
And per my recollection of DRC, it meets all of our requirements with easements and access.
Yes.
cross access.
Yes.
So,
Okay, any questions?
What's the frame of reference here?
Across the way used to be crushed liquor.
So that's Brush. What's next to it is Fred's.
Okay.
The dentist office with the dinosaur
Okay.
is just south of there.
The other building is a metal building.
All right, good, thank you. What do you think?
Good to be back, yes, that's correct. Any questions? Roll call vote. Requesting plat for approval?
Mayfield,
Yes.
Burgess,
Yes.
oh, was absent. Pitfield,
yes.
Brunt,
Yes.
Staton,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Irwin.
Yes. Plat approval has been approved. Next item of business is the Modern Storage, 300 Dale Drive, White Dater and Associates requesting site plan approval.
Yes, so this is, this is a site plan that's before you. It also comes with the plat. The thing that I wanted to speak on first was what was coming, was contingent upon master transportation plan changes. So as you know, something that's on the agenda for tonight is a conversation about master transportation plan. There's a public hearing with that as well, and those are contingent upon this because the old plan and then what is proposed has some different outcomes on it. One of the questions there is what happens with Dale Drive and the Half Street improvements are required there. And then currently there's a road that runs just south of that building through that storage area. And Colton, if you want to show them exactly where this is Dale Drive is over there by Lowe's, and is on the south side of that.
Right between Wendy's and Little Caesars.
So there's a road on the transportation plan that goes across that south border, or pointed out. Runs
just due to the creek, the floodplain, this is also very narrow, ability to get in here. And there's so many utilities located right here. The light utilities located there, and I believe there's a couple of other.
AT&T.
Yeah, utilities that are located there, so it would be a very expensive project to do. As for the site overall,
So what was your comments on Dell? We had discussion, I know we'll handle that in the public hearing, but it is conditional on that, correct?
Right, so on the Dell portion of it, it was whether, the conversation there was about the collector. So right now, it's designated as a collector. And I think most, were in agreement that it definitely needed to be at the intersection there. I think everybody's probably been stuck on Dell at least once or twice trying to get out on the rentals, and it can be challenging at times. And I think, you know, with the road improvement down there, which is not in front of this facility, I don't want to sway.
So we were
The
looking.
plan shows the collector, at least at this point, going all the way down. There have been conversations about there not being a collector down to that point or not. The plan, even the recommended plan right now, the proposed plan, I should say, has a collector going down to the turn at Ridgecrest.
Looks like it goes all the way to the
That's good.
service road,
Goes through.
correct?
based on the map.
The current map, yes, I'm sorry.
And we talked about not making it a collector from,
Ridgecrest.
but even before Ridgecrest, because the road on Dell Drive where it's been developed by the Lowe's developer is wider than what Dell Drive is between Wendy's and Promotional Ideas. And we're talking about widening Dell Drive, where they're looking at building 2 feet, is my understanding.
Now that Lowe's developer developed that. And the right of way was given to them, and they built it to city specs for that full scale development. I'm assuming they gave it to the city. I don't know if there's a conveyance document, but it is contained in their restrictive covenants. So I don't know, and I guess after that time frame, we changed an ordinance and put it on our master transportation plan as a collector
Yeah,
after they were approved.
yeah, it is a collector now on the transportation plan. And that's what the proposed plan shows. I think the conversation about the roadway itself, I think is, at least the way the agenda is set up, is more of a transportation plan issue of whether it gets changed at that transportation plan or not, or iteration, or what happens there. We can continue to have the conversation now.
But this vote is still contingent on that being changed to NPT. And if we didn't, it has 2 contingencies. It sounds like one is for the road going through the floodway, and one is for Dale being downgraded.
Well, if both of it's contingent upon the passing of the transportation plan, which if the site plan gets approved as it is, then those things would have to be approved, or they would have to go back to the drawing board, at least on those 2 sections. So I think, yes, the answer is yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think,
It's a floodway or floodplain?
There's a little of both. There's a creek that goes through there.
but for clarification, the drawing board would be, they could do the half street improvements, and they fit all the specs
Yeah,
on the Dale Drive portion.
correct.
Okay.
Does the applicant understand that? Dale?
I think,
You look,
Brian, I mean,
if you have no further questions for me.
I just want to make sure they understand what we're doing here.
Yeah, I'll
you look different in person than you do on Zoom.
Ryan Dale with White Gators and Associates here representing Keith Richardson on this application. We understand they're tied together. We would like to see if we could separate those votes and do the Collector Street to the south is one vote, and then Dell Drive is another vote. And to speak for Dell Drive, Keith has agreed to dedicate the right of way 30 feet from the center line, which meets your collector standard. He has agreed just, and I don't know if he's opposed to building a 2-foot widening, it's just kind of 2 feet. It's just to pull out the curb, build 2 feet of pavement, and put the curb back in. It just seems minor, but, we would like to separate those 2 votes for the MTP if we could, please.
We're just requesting plat approval, I mean, the site plan approval, right?
Yes, so in order to vote on the transportation plan, the transportation plan is located inside of a public hearing.
Right.
So there needs to be the ability to have the public comment in order to pass, a change on that, like that. That's at least what was advertised.
So we either yes, requesting a plat approval or no? Is that what we're doing on this vote?
Yeah, a site plan.
Site plan approval, I'm sorry.
Plat approval, verbal package.
Conditioned on the MTP plan being revised. They're requesting us to revise our master transportation plan to fit this.
Yes.
Basically.
Yes.
And so our approval would be, we approve your site plan contingent upon the MTP being revised during our public hearing.
Correct.
And if we don't revise both portions of it, then they would have to come back and agree to do the Half Street improvements on Dale Drive.
Right.
You that's, you good with that? Okay.
Roll call vote?
Mayfield?
Yes.
Burgess?
Yes.
Those absent. Penfield?
Yes.
Brunt?
Yes.
Staton?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Irwin?
Yes. Site plan has been approved.
You have to wait for the other public hearing.
Next item is Springville Plaza sign for 4000 Highway 5, requesting approval for sign variance.
So I know I explain this probably every time we have a sign variance, but considering we were just in a board zoning and adjustment, and that seems to be where variances are usually located, the sign code is located outside of the zoning code. So, and in the sign code, it specifically states that sign codes, variances are handled by the planning commission itself. So that's why we're here in the planning commission looking on a variance. So I wanted to add some clarification to what the staff was saying about the location. The location is not in the way of any utilities, so it's an acceptable location to engineering and public works. I think that's the point we were trying to get across. And then the variance is because of the style of sign. So in this area, that type of sign is not permitted. It was what was there before. Then, of course, RDOT came through with the widening project and took that portion of the sign as well as some other portions. Did improvements. We're doing improvements.
Okay. Any questions?
So you said this is the style of sign that was there before?
It's not that exact sign, but a pole sign.
It was grandfathered in because it was there prior to us.
But they've taken parking as well as pushed everything back towards the buildings.
There's barely room. I was there yesterday with my truck out of Sherwood-Williams and back up safely.
Good luck.
On the location, can you bring up the location?
Oh, I think that was your question. We had a DRC was the location of the site.
Yeah, and I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of where it was going to go.
So the variance is for a pole versus a monument, right?
Yes, right.
And the hardship is RDOT and there's no room and everything. I mean, there's no room for a monument sign.
Yeah, I think you could try to situate a monument sign on one end of the property or the other, but on where its current location is, there's a concrete wall that comes right up to the right-of-way. And then it just goes straight to asphalt. And there's an elevation difference there. So I don't know that difference off the top of my head, but I'm thinking it's 2 or 3 feet at least. So
I agree with that probably.
You gotta get clarification on that. There is no way to do a sign at this place other than what they were doing, correct?
That hasn't been looked at by the applicant, to my knowledge. The only thing we've been submitted is the pole sign location.
I don't have that specific site plan on here. This, about where my cursor is right now, is the approximate location where that pole sign would go. For the approved location that we looked at.
Could you bring it in a little closer for some of us?
Where's your cursor?
Yeah, where's the cursor? Put a color on the cursor.
Right there, okay.
Yeah, right on top of that.
Yeah, about where that first car is.
I just don't know how they could put a ground sign.
Excuse me, Joe?
I don't know how they could, they almost have to do a pole sign.
Correct.
Where would
We
they,
have that same issue every location on Highway 5.
where they put it?
Well, it's just this side of Highway 5.
Put it on the wall.
We did for
I guess.
Lions Bank too, and we did it for Frylock location. Okay. So request approval for sign variance, roll call vote.
All right. Penfield,
Yes.
Brunt,
Yes.
Staton,
Yes.
Mayfield,
Yes.
Burgess,
Yes.
Opposed, absent. Johnson,
Yes.
Irwin.
Yes. Request for approval for sign variance has been approved. Okay, now we're going back into public hearing. First item in our public hearing is Bryant Family Pharmacy requesting approval for conditional use permit.
Yeah, so the requirement for a CU here is that's a requirement of any pharmacy or medical applicant like this type. And so the requirement is to have a conditional use permit on this and to have a public hearing around it.
Okay. Anybody speaks for or against having conditional use permit for this location? Come forward and speak. Okay. Commissioner, y'all have any comment? Do roll call vote?
Mayfield,
Yes.
Burgess,
Yes.
Opposed, absent. Penfield,
Yes.
Brunt,
Yes.
Staton,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Irwin.
Yes. Question approved for conditional use permit is passed. Okay, HOB zoning map changes.
Yeah, so on these have been requested to actually take off the agenda, both items for the Heart of Ryan. And the reason that is we were communicated to by a group out of Little Rock about the legality of these. And I'd just like to take a moment to sort of explain that situation to the commissioners. Of course, I think most are aware of the residential state law that got passed. And I think it was last year, we talked about residential standards and the city's ability to do those and specifically overlay districts. And that's where this one comes into case. And I think the idea, at least, that was pitched, I'll remind everyone, I think I was pretty opposed to that. But the idea was that it was surrounded by local control, the idea of local control. And I think here you have a case where one of these proposals, actually both of them, were in a manner to lower the standards of the Heart of Ryan, or at least what has to be done there. So the zoning code changes would have changed some of the Main Street mixed use to neighborhood transitional, which is a lesser zone. And the other one would have allowed for the ability to have carports and garages built in a different manner. So I'm just impressed by this idea of local control. And yet we, the city and the planning commission can't even deregulate our own code without the state legislature. So just a disappointing case, and I wanted to make sure that you were aware of what happened, why this was taken out, and why it's mentioned.
Mr. Chairman, I know we've opened the public hearing, but we had voted to put J.D. Byrider in before the public hearing.
My mistake.
And we sidestepped the public hearing, get it in there because the other two items will be approved.
I apologize for oversight and remove it. Let's do holding pattern for a public hearing.
Yes, sir.
And then let's do that J.B. Ryder. Is that okay?
Yes.
Sorry about that. Drew.
Oh, no problem. I should have probably caught it too. So, J.D. City by Ryder, what they're in front of you today is it's on the request of a non-standard building approval. So they are going to meet the standards on the front and then the west side of the building, but not the other east side of the building.
Which is next to the trailer sales.
Yes. You're on.
Are they here? Okay.
So that is a lot.
Used to be Landers Used Cars.
Yes, and there's still more work to be done on the project. But with the timeline that we've got, we thought it was more acceptable to bring the non-standard building approval item to you first. And if you remember, this was on the previous planning commission agenda, and it didn't quite make because of a series of problems, issues. But brought to you now, and like I said, they're meeting those front two sides. I say the front side and if you're facing the building, the right of the building, but neither on the other two. If you remember, the code specifically reads that you have to meet the front and sides of the building, have to meet the commercial design standards. And I believe, just for being specific, one of the things that they're asking for is the ability to use non-concealed fasteners on those two sides that won't meet the code.
On the west side?
On the east side and the rear.
That'd be the same as what they've got now, correct?
I believe so. But they are,
It's a prefab building as it is.
yeah, they are, I think, and I'll let them speak more to it, redoing those sides of the building. It'll just be back in that same style.
Okay.
Are they here to speak?
Yeah, there's that. Y'all need to speak, please.
Yeah, so
Question?
I think just one more thing, just to be clear, is that they're saying that they will meet the commercial design standards on the front and right side or west side elevation, but they're asking for the variance on the south and east side. Or not the south, I'm sorry, they don't need it on the east side elevation.
The east side doesn't face a road, correct?
It's next to the trailer sales.
How visible is that, would you estimate?
That side wouldn't be because it's one way on the service road. You wouldn't see it unless you were on the other side of the road.
I never noticed it. Can you do Google? Street level. Please. You have to come forward, please, anyway. State your name. Write your name down, please.
Dan Barlow.
Matt Anderson with Power Router. I think one thing you'll notice, I don't know that Google will show it, but also on that east side is a huge billboard. So there's actually a billboard on the property that we bought. And then also on the property we bought is another billboard right there. So as you're going by, your eye would be attracted to the billboard more so than that side of the building where the trailer is. And all we're asking to do is replace, that building's been there for a while, and the metal panels that are there, I don't know, there have been signs and other things screwed good, so our option would be to take off what's there, put right back what's on there, and the whole building would be painted back. So the rear of the building and the east side of the building would be the two parts that would be non-conforming.
You're not going to put a driveway down the left side?
No.
You really have two fronts if you look at it on the aerial, the point,
Yep.
corner's touching it.
So the two sides, the side on the left is the variance, is the new siding. Just for a little technical difference, our panel that's there now has a rib that sticks out for screws. We're going to invert that, but you won't see the screws as much, but it's still exposed fat, like two of the things, but it's not as exposed, but it'll be all in the metal panels.
And I see it
Front,
there.
there's gonna be a couple arches, I think, probably
Be like a building in Sherwood?
It'll be similar to the building in Sherwood. We're actually going back to all of our buildings now to make them look more like this building would be.
Like the front there?
Yes.
Some of it's stone on the bottom there, and then
Yes.
it's got the eaves or drive it on the top part.
So basically, we're talking about the east side not being conforming to our code.
And that's
See
what
it
we're
there,
asking.
we're asking.
Any questions from commissioners, from the commissioners?
What would it take to build those sides to the standard?
And the other side?
Yeah.
Well, I think, I can speak on the standard, maybe conversation.
Actually, it's more of a construction question.
Okay. Not me.
You talking about cost?
I mean,
So you can seal faster as not to seal.
Right.
minor, is it major, is it?
Well, you gotta buy all these handles and what,
By the
and
panels,
what,
They go by pounds anyway.
Are you talking about meeting the standard with the 30%? Or are you talking about the metal 30% panels? We're asking a variance for the whole side to be metal panels. I'm not sure what your question is.
Yeah, it's more about the faster.
But if you seal fasteners
They cost about,
instead of the inverted ones like you're talking about.
half again as much, of panels, I'm not sure what they are square foot.
It doesn't have to be the dollar, I'm just trying to judge magnitude.
Right.
damn, 20,000, 30,000?
For the, east side, probably 6 to 10. For the rear, about half that, it's only half. And then the other two sides are better than concealed fasteners. So we're gonna make the code with the other two sides.
That's your question, Walter?
I think it does.
It's just the same situation as Chin Fitness, basically.
But theirs on the front.
Yeah.
Well,
These are on the side.
And I see them from the intersection.
You do not.
Okay. Any other questions?
So, I'm good. Vote for yes is grant variance.
Non-standard building approval. Roll call vote.
Get organized over here. Mayfield,
Yes.
Burgess. Opposed, absent. Penfield,
Yes.
Brunt,
Yes.
Staton,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Irwin.
Yes. Request for your non-standard building has been approved. So, going back into a public hearing, is that all we have to do on that one?
Yes.
Or go back to public hearing?
If I could recommend for our guests here, of course, I'd love for them to stay for our commercial zoning portion as well. But if we may have our transportation plan public hearing before our commercial zoning public hearing.
I'll make that as a motion. I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It's done.
So this is an update that staff has put together on the Walk Bike Drive Master Transportation Plan street section of it. And I will say this does not include the sidewalk or the trail system. That'll be something that comes through at a later date. We wanted to nail down where the streets were and what was going to change and go from there. I think maybe we'll be trying to go through the section by section where there's changes. And we'll kind of go from there. So I'm going to step over here. We can kind of talk from here. So the one thing to realize, the green lines are designated of a road that is being proposed to take off the map. So it was on the map and now it's being taken off. So every green line you see, it no longer is on there. So I think the biggest one, let's actually show Bryant Parkway first. Biggest one being Bryant Parkway. So the old gist of how the map works, and then the different colors of the map designate the different levels of the roadway. So gray is local, yellow is collector, and the pinkish purple red color is arterial. So I'll let you pick where to go next, Paul. So in this area, you can see there were some green lines, and we've done quite a bit here. Originally, this is, and just for a point of reference, Boone Road right here, Alcoa, this is the turn in Boone, and then Mount Carmel right here. So Target is like right there. So the green line, there used to be, the road used to curve up this way and then used to come up this way. Well, this area is inundated in floodplain floodway. And of course, we had a lot of conversation about this. There's the collector going across the golf course. And the idea there is, obviously, it's a golf course now. If it ever stopped being a golf course, or moved on to a different type of use that was more congruent with this, I think at that point it would be really wise to have another collector coming across the city. Right now, our only one, even on the plan that makes it all the way across, is Boone. And Boone is really tight in places, and it's just, whenever you can have another one, it's always a good idea too, just for safety and security. The other thing that happened here was, this was a collector. This is now a local road connecting up to here. The collector then got changed to come all the way across here to tie in with this collector, and then this was added as a local road. It was previously up to this point, and then this was downgraded to a local road. The other thing that happens in this section is this was downgraded from a collector to a local road. So, there are not any questions about that.
Oswell going across the golf course, you're saying that won't happen as long as there's a golf course?
Either there'd have to be a redevelopment, or the city would have to go in there and purchase that. But I think it's something, the transportation plan is one that, like, this is where we could ultimately get to after years and years and years of development.
20, 30 years. I don't think we'd want to drive to it with the golf course still.
And what we're talking
I
about?
might try to hit you.
I'd be sitting there.
But since their whole site is the golf course, they build another clubhouse, it wouldn't kick it.
Okay. Okay, I think with that, you want to do Ridgecrest, go ahead and have that conversation. So, to sort of explain first what's happening back here. So this green line, there's a connector from, I think this is Shove, I forget what the, but there's a connection with Debswood. Thank you.
Comes across city property.
Right, and then comes into here. This is the section that I was talking about that's very difficult. That's the section that has the floodway issue, the creek, the utilities, and then the existing structures that are there now. It'd be very challenging. Although I will say this is the one road where, if you could get a road in there and make it work, this one would be incredible, I think, for traffic flow, especially coming across Roya, and with eventually having the Sheaf to Prickett connection done. But we looked at that. I know Ted and I looked at that specifically to see if that could work, and it becomes very challenging. And so that's why it's been recommended to take off. The other thing that happened here is the connection through here kind of changed. So this property through here that this little snake road follows is owned by the city of Bryan. So that was property that is already city of Bryan property. So when we were looking at the plan, we thought it best to put that connection on that property, which from my understanding was deemed for a roadway connection through there. So that's why that's still there. And the other logic behind removing these sections of road, that's city of Bryan property. So at any time, the city, could come through and build that roadway out through there to whatever spec, it needed. So I think my recommendation would be if we ever sold the property, to maybe reevaluate what was on the plan.
and you don't need it on the street plan if it's city-owned property. Because you can do whatever you want to with it, it's yours.
Yeah.
Ours. So you're removing it for that reason.
Yes.
Okay.
And then to further the conversation, I think that we were talking about earlier, that has to do with Dell Drive. So we were talking about the back of the Modern Storage right there. Their site plan is what we were just talking about. And this road is located on city property. So that's why we're not having a conversation about them building part of that road. But the conversation now is this collector that comes down Dell and Ridgecrest. The one thing, I don't know, there's a lot of conversation about it as we started, is trucks tend to have this habit of coming down Dell Drive and then trying to turn north on Ridgecrest. And when I mean trucks, I mean 18-wheelers.
Oh,
And this turn is not ideal.
That house is not ideal either.
No.
Big rocks.
Yeah. But I know Ted did some analysis on just, real brief stuff. He's not a traffic engineer, but he stayed at a Holiday Inn Express, I guess. But did a analysis on the turning motions there. And to really make that turn for an 18-wheeler, even by taking on the other lane, you have to move, pretty much you have to overtake that whole grass turn area. So you really have to take in a lot. It's because it's such a tight turn, and actually the turn kind of moves back on you. So if you're making one of those maneuvers, it's very difficult to make in an 18-wheeler. And I think at times, the Public Works Department has had to help vehicles back down Ridgecrest. So 18-wheelers get too far in there, but they get over on one of those ditches and fall over, and not a good situation, but something that needs to be taken care of. And so I just
say taken care of, what are you talking about?
at some point there needs to be an improvement there to either assist with the issue or get rid of the issue.
When you get to the other end, you're not in much better shape.
I heard that. At Laura.
Why could it be a collector? It's an issue, both ends.
there can't be signage put up, no truck entry?
There is signage.
Yeah. There's just got a big sign about $1,000.
How is our change gonna affect that?
Well, what I'm bringing up is that I think the reason why the collector is because of the truck traffic. A collector, even a collector turn right there, would be able to handle that truck traffic better than what's currently built out there right now. For the most part, your local streets feed your collectors, and then your collectors feed your arterials. So, by ideal, you wouldn't have your local streets be inundated with a whole bunch of 18-wheeler traffic.
But is that street built on Dell where it'll handle an 18-wheeler?
Does every day.
It's just the curve that you're saying it's not.
Just that intersection.
Yeah, I mean, the curve isn't very good, and by definition, which is what we're dealing with the modern storage application, is that the road that's currently out there does not meet the full specification of a collector. It's close, but it does not meet the full specification
About 2 feet.
of asphalt on their side, so 4 feet overall.
Even though that road was built to city specs when it was built by the Lowe's development. I
Yeah.
think.
Obviously, at some point, the spec changed, and with it, our specifications have probably upgraded since then.
I'd rather see having a turn lane there at Dale and Mills Road than worrying about widening 2 feet, 4 feet, tearing out a curb and everything.
So our option would be to could you segment it? We've talked about that before, Truett. Segment the first so many feet for stacking to leave it a collector and then downgrade it to a local street all the way down Ridgecrest.
Yeah, that's an option. I think the thing you gotta think there is then how does that flow from one version of it to another? I think, that happens in areas, but obviously you go from a certain width of asphalt and curve and just overall right of way, and it narrows down to another.
I'd rather see Neil be a collector because that's how most people come down and hit Evans Loop from Show, Deadwood, Neil, Evans Loop. You can turn left and go up to Regions Bank, hit the stoplight, or take your chances there by where Hardee's used to be.
Yeah, I mean, what you'll have then is you'll have a collector for sure show feeding into Snake Road here. And then, coming down to another local road where if it, empties out up here, it's emptying out into a collector.
But that's city property. You don't know when that road will be built.
No. Just talking about the spec of the road and what it would be and where that traffic would go.
Well, and Ridgecrest is all residential, I mean, that's a subdivision, isn't it?
Very narrow street.
Trees are low.
It's bad shape anyway.
Yeah. When you get to Lower Lane, you can only turn left or right.
I tell you, previously,
They take you like in your hand.
Neil, we promised those folks that live in that area that we would take that traffic off of there, with show coming through there. And that's one of the reasons why we had originally put that street across city property and coming out on the Ridgecrest there, just that first little turn there. Was to enable that traffic to come out and go right on up and get out to the interstate.
And that's why.
Well, I understand, but we're taking it off, and then what happens is you sell the city property and it's not on there anymore.
What's the hurt to have it on there?
Yeah, I think.
Just that little section of it anyway.
Yeah,
But that was when we proposed that, that's what we thought, and that's why we were able to get the easement right away from Evans Loop to Dale Drive. When they built the daycare center there, is that correct?
Yeah, I think having it on there, I'll be honest, I don't have heartburn one way or the other. I think by not having it on there, you leave some flexibility for the city on what street to build. On the other hand, if you have it on there, then you have your protection of if the city ever sells it, you don't have to turn back around and do something to the transportation plan to ensure that there's a road through there.
See the city selling that property, so.
I wouldn't either.
I don't either. I see in a perfect world that connection goes right where we took it off, right there at Roya. Well, we don't live in a perfect world. I mean, I don't see that collector ever getting built all the way to Ridgecrest. I mean, I'd rather see it all the way up to Laura. I'd rather see, you've got Neil that they're using anyway, and they're gonna continue to use. I mean, what would hurt with trying to keep it improved as a local street and segment it down to a collector somewhere where you have the ability to turn? The biggest problem is turning left on Reynolds Road.
Talking about Dale Drive.
Yeah, Dale.
Yeah, Ted and I were actually looking at this today. You've got traffic flow coming this way, trying to get to Reynolds, and then if you're trying to turn left, obviously, you've got to cross, 2 lanes and maybe get into that middle turn lane, if you dare. But the only lights in this area, of course, are here.
Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, which has our great Chick-fil-A there. And then down here at Prickett. So what you could do is traffic flows come down around and come to here to then take to get across traffic in a safer manner. But, and obviously there's a light at Roya, but I think kind of like we talked about, perfect world, if this was Sim City, go in there and make the road. But it's not that case, and I don't think, it's a road that can really happen.
So what benefit do we get? I mean, I'm putting 2 feet there, and then someone buys a piece across the street, goes to build, and they do, I mean, you're saying it helps with the truck traffic by adding 4 feet?
No, I guess what I was stating is that collectors help with truck traffic. Collectors by design handle trucks better than local streets.
How does Lowe's get their trucks?
Come down Dale Drive. Or they come through Chick-fil-A and tear up the parking islands.
One of those rocks, right?
They move those too. I mean, I go down there every day. just
That or
about.
they come in through by the hospice over there.
Yeah. That road's a private road and it needs to be repaired anyway.
I personally
They
think
passed it the other day.
Did.
Passed the big hole.
Fine.
I think we segment it and downgrade it, but that's just my opinion.
Where would you do that at?
I'm not a traffic expert, but just enough to give you, I mean, the biggest problem is turning left. People are gonna try to turn left there and you stack. I mean, how far back do you have to come from Reynolds?
Yeah, talking about segmenting it, that was the direction to go. I see 2 clear delineations. Can you bring up Edge, Colton? I think it would be a little easier to see it on that. So you've got, obviously, you got Windy, you got this commercial area here. You've also got here, and then you've got, I think, back here, that you could delineate as.
Those roads within Lowe's is private roads, they're not city streets,
Correct. No.
so we can't do nothing with those streets.
Yeah, those are private.
But that's where everybody cuts through to get, go out Chick-fil-A lot.
Except at lunchtime, it's Chick-fil-A, but.
And that's the problem with Chick-fil-A
Yeah,
problem.
like from 11 to 3.
So what is your thing on segment?
I was just saying, I think you could stop, you know, at this point, or, you know, take it further down. I think a conversation we had was dropping Ridgecrest down to a local street. Because really, when you look at development along Ridgecrest, you've got those homes that are already built around there, and then you've got across the street from that, which has got a lot of floodway issues for the development overall.
Does this proposal bring Ridgecrest down to a local?
This does not currently.
That's what we discussed.
This is zoning, Cole, can you?
It's all flood though.
It's all flood.
You can't want to do it.
That's where the detention pond drains from Lowe's, behind Lowe's, it floods, it goes through that property at an angle. It almost meets there at Ridgecrest.
So it is residential.
Yes. RM, and then
Mostly the duplexes, houses, and over.
There's nothing there that just, it's just woods.
Be tough to get a lot of density in
get our doers.
Then C2 must be Fleming.
I believe they're further north, but maybe,
It's the back of their lot. They got a,
yeah. an
they got
access
a lot
point.
back there. They forced up on.
Oh, that's the pond.
If you downgrade Ridgecrest, what does that do? I mean, what other than just saying it's downgraded, what does it do? Do you put a sign up saying no trucks?
I believe there's already some of that signage out there to sort of deter that, because it's been such a problem for so long.
It's there, they just don't pay attention to it.
That's a good idea.
I think some of the issues they've had is the thing GPS likes to take them that way instead of turning them back around and getting on rails at points during the day. So then they end up stuck out there.
Also, we're having a lot of trucks stay overnight at McDonald's when it says no overnight parking.
Another aspect, I'm sorry I hadn't brought this up, but and this is in a different spec entirely, but there's the street specifications, so that deals with what the street is made of, not so much what the street looks like, what goes through it, but the densities of that. And so there's different delineations between local streets, collector streets, and arterials, because the more traffic and the different types of traffic you have, the thicker you have to make the base of the asphalt. So by downgrading the street, you're also downgrading what has to be done to the street.
So if you did not have to widen past right behind Jim's property right there, just went that far, what's the problem of letting them turn right there?
So
They're having to
talking
go
about-
through a parking lot, aren't they?
Yeah,
Yes,
right there.
that's how they do it now.
Yeah, it flowed through that parking lot.
They gotta go through some, if they get in there, they gotta go through some of the low parking, one way or the other.
They'll find a way. I mean, the traffic flows.
Well, they come out of McDonald's now, and they either go down that private road and get on Dale and try to turn, or go out Chick-fil-A. Or try to go out McDonald's there.
I go to Chick-fil-A, it's too hard to turn left.
How wide is Dale back a curve? You know,
What part of
Brian,
Dale?
do you know? 30?
30.
And our typical's 28 back a curve, and our local's 28?
I believe so. I think it's 24 to 26 off the top of my
For
head.
local, so it's already built to a category better than our local, correct?
On
Correct.
their-
It's better than our local.
On their property we're looking at.
Yeah, it's better than the local underneath the collector, is what's currently out there. When we're talking about the asphalt and back to curb.
Well, they built it that way so their trucks, you can see their truck turn. It's all in their restricted covenants and their whole plan, it's recorded. It was built to get the trucks right in there, to our specs at that time.
Actually, at the corner of Promotion Ideals and that road by Lowe's, they've destroyed part of the curb there. Trucks turning off of Dale going up towards Lowe's. And towards some of the curb here.
When the
Think somewhere-
traffic comes out of McDonald's and goes through Lowe's parking lot to the street that goes out by Chick-fil-A to the light. where
Correct.
You don't get on and turn on Reynolds Road to the left at all. If you wanna go to the right, you have to stand a good chance. If you wanna go left, you cut through Lowe's parking lot and go to the stoplight.
Well, I think, let's try to narrow the conversation. I completely, I don't think we're gonna be able to fix the access point onto Reynolds or the amount of traffic that's coming through there. Because this is like 28,000 cars a day. So I think, although in a perfect world, throw a light out there and boom, bang, we're done.
That's close.
I think, to this point of the conversation, what are we staying at a collector, going to a local, taking a section of it and going to a local?
I think the way it's built would be fine downgrading it from Ridgecrest all the way around to right at Reynolds.
Takes
Say,
a local.
Like come down
Somewhere in there, yeah, somewhere right in there. I'd just like to see a way to get a center turn lane if that ever redevelops.
Yeah, I prefer if you're gonna do that to pick like a, property line, those
That's fine.
almost.
Right
like
there.
that.
How about Wendy's?
Or
Wendy's.
come back here. Yeah,
Does
the
it
back
have
of
to be a
Wendy's,
collector to get a?
Yeah, is that,
turning lane?
what's the south one right
that's
there?
Wendy's.
What's the one
That's
south
McDonald's.
of?
Super
That's-
8,
Super 8.
that's the, Little Caesars and the,
Advertising place over there.
So right in there,
the Worcester.
downgrade it from there all the way around, that's my thought.
That's a Worcestershire behind, Little Caesars. So that'd be right there, across that line, that'd be all equal with it.
Might not be long enough.
Lance, why wouldn't you downgrade it right there behind Jim's property?
That's fine. You get to that first drive,
I mean,
you're gonna have them, I'm just looking at the stacking in my mind.
yeah.
What's that property to the south of, where it says 1.54, what's that?
That's the empty lot, isn't it?
Empty.
No
Y'all didn't take that,
development.
did you? Yours is on down the
Yeah,
next line.
yeah.
Is there any development proposed for above or adjacent to Lowe's yet, or is that property still for sale?
Still for sale.
Right there.
I'd say downgrade it right there, right
I
there.
think that makes a lot of sense.
That's right there.
If you're gonna pick a place to delineate.
The trucks double destroy all of that, there's more density there. They're gonna go down anyway.
Okay, well then I think we can move forward with that proposal.
So we're gonna downgrade it from that private road right there, all the way around to Laura to a
All the
local
way out.
street.
Yeah. Is that,
Agreeable, I'm agreeable. Yep.
That's good. Good.
okay?
And that's about where it changes to a better road anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the road as is from that private road is gonna be, you will not have to do street improvements.
Well, we want to go back to the plan, and then I think at this point we can move to another section. You're good with that section?
Move on.
Negotiation. See, we don't own that property on that private road.
So this is Parkway. So you notice the black, when it's broken up like that, that's a road that's not built. So it will be built, not currently built. The solid line roads are constructed in some manner. It does not mean they're constructed correctly. So one thing we did here was this road used to come up through here. We realized that this is already a developed subdivision. There's houses here. I believe there's a house here. So when you're talking about developing and then building a road, this probably won't happen because of the way the house is already there. But I still think it makes a lot of sense to get some traffic over here to help alleviate any future traffic that is on Parkway. So leaving that, and then down this property line, there's an existing easement from what I understand. It was helped to access back there. There's a little bit of a road back in there. So that's why we moved that down there. And of course, these roads here are existing. So just point of reference, Show Road, Parkway, we were just over here. All right.
So the black is a new road.
The black and gray, anything with the stripes black is a proposed road. So, that's a road that has not been constructed yet.
So there's the one from Johns Wood up to Absorb Circle, whatever it is that?
The dotted yellow, what is it?
The dotted yellow is the dotted yellow is an existing, proposed road on the map. The black ones are proposed roads that we've proposed,
Is there any-
changed in some manner.
There's an
Either
exist, yeah.
moved one way or the other. I think for the most part, we haven't like added large stretches of roads. I think for the most part, we're either downgrading roads or slightly altering existing roads.
The green dash was supposed to be where the road went.
I got you.
It's all built out, Andrus is developed, there is an existing easement, so that's being removed, because it doesn't make sense, it's not really gonna work.
Right.
Where Andrus dead ends, there's an existing private road easement where the black and gray is. So we're moving that connection over to that location.
And that doesn't disrupt homes.
Exactly.
Assuming a little bit more,
The one between Cove and Johnswood, that's just the back of that new subdivision that's going in.
Correct.
Yeah. Which they agreed in DRC to make that connection, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so it's already gonna work in that location. And then the yellow dash line that we're adding was a connection that just kind of straightens that out.
Yeah. That was on the plan previously.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's good.
All right. Let's go to the next section. I think you should just zoom out a little bit. Maybe I can handle the ones in the northeast quadrant. Come back down just a little bit. Woody Drive, this is one. Woody Drive is one that y'all have already done. It's just an updating of the plan, so it officially shows it. We removed this here, and then the developer is redeveloping this intersection here. So it's more of a 90-degree instead of a very weird intersection now. That's what that is. Y'all have already approved that, just needed to show it on the map. The other thing that's happening here is this collector, this was a collector that curved up and met over here, which I can see the sense of wanting it to come down Lombard. But with the development of Midtown, there's also a existing water line that runs north and south right here. So I thought it made a lot of sense to use the existing water line, next to the existing water line to make that happen. You want to head on up to far north. So the other thing that happened, which is something that we have already discussed, was changing that originally this arterial Midland came all the way to the top. It's now been changed to this road here, and for that change. And then I think that was it.
What about, we talked a little about JB, I want to get that long-winded conversation, but we also had that, was it JB, JD? They were
JB
doing that.
Byrider?
What's that road?
Bishop Drive.
Bishop Drive, yeah.
Yeah.
We had some conversation
Yeah.
where they're not gonna develop yet on that side.
Oh, I'm sorry, let's, real quick, this was previously done as well, but that development that came through in that master plan. Bishop, we had some conversation about, does it need to be a collector all the way up? I think my minimum recommendation would be at least a collector from Roya up to 30. There's so much, we've already discussed the traffic on Reynolds, but there's so much that comes up through there.
I agree.
So that, I think,
Bishop is all residential unless
Yeah.
you start
So you may move that to the local, is that what you're saying?
downgraded to a local.
so this section of it as a local road.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, just looking for any other key things.
I think that's the one we talked about, more concerned with is those.
You good with that?
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
So just for clarification, things that we're not changing that are not shown on the map so that we can change those for when this goes to council. We're gonna take Dell down to a local road, starting from that intersection right there. The first intersection, the first private road. And then on Bishop, we're gonna downgrade it to a local, everything south of Royal Lane.
Can I ask a question?
Ridgecrest too also is local.
Correct.
On Dell, downgrading it, does that have anything to do with maintaining it? Because the trucks go all the way to the back of the building and use that part of the road also. So,
I think as far as maintaining it, that'll stay the same. It's a city street now, so we'll still maintain it. The only difference would be that street spec that I was talking about, how by having the higher road classification, it requires a denser road. So if you put, it has to, you've got a bad road and an 18-wheeler drives on it, it gets worse quickly. So that would be the only difference there.
But that road seems to have been holding up pretty well all the 18
yeah,
months.
I just wanted to make sure in the future, if you went up and stopped it, and the trucks continue to go down and it wears out, that it gets rebuilt back to the same standards that it hold up to.
Yeah, if anybody did maintenance on it, it'd almost certainly be the city of Bryan.
Yeah.
I think we're trying to get a turn lane there on Dale.
It's a city street, so it'd be city maintenance,
Yeah.
even if they widen it.
Okay, I think with that and all that conversation, it is a public hearing. So, any of the
Public comment?
What about commercial zoning code changes?
Well, we got to move.
List of master transportation plan changes, as we have discussed, finalized on all the changes and reducing them. All in favor, say, or do roll call, I'm sorry. Yes, is approving the changes to the master street plan with what we talked about tonight.
All right, Mayfield,
Yes.
Burgess. Yes. I was absent. Pittsfield,
Yes.
Brunt,
Yes.
Staton,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Irwin.
Yes. So you will give us the updated master transportation plan?
Yeah, so we will update it and we will send it to council for their approval at the next council meeting.
Okay.
Which is the end of this one.
The next item is commercial zoning code changes.
So back to where we started. No, so I know we've had a long evening, there's a lot on the agenda. But I think something that's also important that I need to do is this is the moment for public comment and hearing. I wanted to read the comments that were submitted to us via the online portion, and then we can open up for additional public comment, and then go from there. I think what I'll do, if acceptable, is go through these. The way we did it on the Google Drive, Google Form, was broken down by section. So I think I'll kind of walk through some of these sections and read the description as they come up.
So some of the sections we did not have any comments, I know of.
Yes, some of them, there were no comments. So the first one was on the use table, and Melissa Melton just commented that she was curious about the types of businesses, and that's why she was looking there. There's also a comment there done by Kristen Higgins, and we have all the addresses and the other information for the record in our file here. Comment there, why are hotels permitted by right in C3 but not transitional housing? Seems like there was never ever an older hotel / motel being sold. Transitional housing might be a good way to reuse that structure, especially if it were near other C3 uses that provide jobs for people who may not have transportation. At least the CU, like the other zones, should be allowed for the transitional housing in C3. In general, the zoning along the interstate would create a welcoming environment that greets people and makes people want to live here. build a city that people want to live in, not just invest in. Please enact a strong tree preservation requirement for commercial development and not just bushes. Too many trees are being torn down in places that are not used for actual structures. Just because it's easier doesn't make it right. Look at abandoned Hardee's, all those trees gone for what?
They did save those trees
big
during
one in
development, and it died.
We went on road. Like the guy in the white painter say that. Here, I moved that.
Okay.
Just right here, I think over here.
That happens on Colonel Burnett.
Share some. So the next comment has to do with section 3, which is this section here, which is the Cricket to Reynolds Road section. The C3 section is too close to the residential section of Cedarwood, Woodside, and Edgewood. Keep that section as C2. So just so everybody knows, that's this subdivision here. I think part of that, the reason why the zoning is done the way there, so remember the blue is C3, the red is C1. We did everything that was off one of the interstates or the highways as C1. Because usually that means it's either next to or really close to residential. So that's why you've got these lots that are C1 there. And then of course this piece of property here, which is the C3 that abuts those, has
It's office building.
office buildings on it.
That's the one we've had, they came in with a site plan, we got a negotiation to build a higher fence and no two-story building, remember?
Yes.
They never built them.
No. Never built the building.
But that's, your proposal is to make that C3?
Yes, because of its frontage to the
And
intersection.
she didn't want it, or whoever responded didn't want it C3, but it gives you, C3 is better for them because it gives a better,
A better buffer.
So,
Yeah. Section 5. So here for orientation, Parkway, Marketplace, so over by Walmart would be right there. I-30, Highway 5. Once again, I'm sorry, I didn't really explain the maps very well, so obviously now. You have current and you have proposed. So the current is what it is now, proposed is what we're proposed to go to. Section 5, there should be no C3 butting up against residential. Leave this as C2. So I think in that case, as we're talking about this subdivision here, which already has the commercial in front of it, and then the large tracts up to the, along the highway there.
again, C3 affords you a better buffer, correct?
Correct. By using the multiplier like we do, the setback in C3 is larger than the setback in C2. So even if we move the C2 buffer, like we talked about earlier, to a ×3, then it's still larger than the C2 because the overall number is larger.
I'd like to see you address those questions with that exact answer to these people who have made these requests or comments.
Well, there's not a response back, which is, this is for your information to have as the commission.
If they have a question, they come up and call you and say, Drew, what y'all end up doing? Tell them this is what we're doing.
And hopefully they're at home right now watching
it live.
YouTube live here. So our next one is section 6. But you didn't think they had it back on them, but they do. Okay, this is from the same person with the same comment, C3 butting up against residential. An additional comment is, I believe, to protect the property value of those along Millbrook Drive and Timber Creek C1 zoning needs to extend from I-30 south to Raymar Road. Further, the screening requirements for C3 is inadequate. A 6-foot fence won't shield homes from commercial activity, parentheses, light and sound, close parentheses, and wood just says cheap. That fencing requirement should be 10 feet and only made of masonry or stone with a 50-foot landscaping buffer between the residential property line and commercial fence. Also, the fencing should be required along any side that fronts houses, even across the street, i.e. Raymar and the Meadowbrook subdivision. I think we're talking about, obviously, this area right here, and, Meadowbrook sits. Meadow Lake, I'm sorry. Yes, Meadow Lake sits right there.
Is that where they, cleared the buffer down through there?
There's still a little buffer.
Yeah, the buffer,
Not where the buffer was at.
the buffer
You got
exists,
right of way.
and they have to provide a screening in the buffer. But what happens in the buffer, it doesn't have to stay natural, but they do have to provide screening by the landscaping code now. Of course, this code isn't really getting in, all the buffering and the vegetation, all that still applies because this code isn't getting into that specific section of the code. This is meaning more on just the uses of the code. So moving on, section 7.
Well, there was a response by us,
Yes, I'm sorry, Mr. Francis. Mr. Francis did have a response, and his response has to deal with this triangle right here. He was requesting that just becomes C3 instead of that triangle C2. So just lining that out.
you have a problem with that?
I do not.
Makes sense.
Agree.
And then section 9.
Section 7.
I didn't do section 7. There we go. Meadow Creek and Lexington Park homeowners going to be living with potential C3 unattractiveness and undesirability. Please zone next to residential neighborhoods to C3. This is the same individual. Ms. who's making that comment.
And where is that located?
So Lexington Park,
It's spin-off from
Lexington Park is right here, and Meadow Creek, yeah, it's right there. So we're talking about this residential area right here, abutting the commercial area, which is right there. Which the current use is here, I believe that's,
LK. One of those is LK.
the uses that are currently there matches the use for the new zone.
Well, that's C1, where is that located there?
That's behind the
There's a,
Hyundai.
yeah, kind of like a, Mosier, we were talking about Mosier earlier.
Yeah.
Right there.
Okay.
It's some small.
Offices of office.
The area between Mosier and the property west of Mosier, going over towards LKQ, that is that's where their water retention's supposed to be, is that correct?
Correct. They have some through there.
And from Lexington down to where LKQ starts, how much property is there that is not part of what is being done LKQ?
Oh, can you?
10 acres or how many acres?
So, actually, you can kind of see it because they parceled it up. This isn't absolutely correct because the property line comes sort of down here, right before Raymar. So that's that section. So maybe, Colton, can you get us a distance from one of those lines to the other?
Yep.
Now, measure to this property line out there.
We're getting better at this every day.
Is that from this property line?
From there, all the way over here. So yeah, there's 480-ish feet. Does that help you?
There's about 20 to 22 acres if you go all the way from the interstate to Rainbow Road, based on the map.
Oh, it's close to 25.
That's gonna stay zoned the way it is.
The proposed zone right now is, for that property is C3, the interstate frontage zone.
Is that all the comments?
That's all the comments we had via the Google form. And let me, just for the record, I'm sorry, I should have been doing this as it was happening.
Oh, section 9.
You're right, once again, jumped ahead of myself.
Did you do 8?
There was nothing on 8.
There's nothing on A, there's a section 9. This is from Ms. Susan as well. First of all, C2 description is too vague. Do not make this open-ended. The storage units and other undesirable businesses slip in and ruin our Reynolds corridor. We need to adopt the downtown Bryant architectural proposal and keep our corridor free from structures that do not enhance what our long-term goals are or should be.
But to do a self-storage in a C2, you have to have a conditional use permit now,
Right.
correct, for this, correct?
That would be what would be proposed. Yes.
I have a synopsis pretty much of well over 100 people that have contacted me that live in our part of town that echo what Ms. Susan said. The distress over that storage unit going in there is unbelievable at Sullivan Road. And what they're asking, whether it's a C2 or C3, it doesn't matter. If the storage unit's coming in, they don't want it buttoned up to residential areas. And that one there's bordered on 3 sides by residential.
Where's that at?
Sullivan here.
Sullivan, right by their old house there, where they're clear cutting everything on Reynolds now.
Yeah.
You know, of course, they were upset about them not leaving a 50-foot buffer zone, which I understand, you know, most of those trees would have died anyway, because they clear cut so much of it, but they could have still left the buffer, but they didn't, but, you know, there's a 50-foot buffer at least there. I kind of agree with Lance on the buffers. We've always told them 50 foot. I think it ought to be at least 50 foot, or whichever number's greater, once you multiply that, the setback, so. But I just tell you, at church, or going out to eat, or anywhere I've been, ever since that started, it's a huge thing. People are sick of storage units coming into Bryant. That's,
Any
Main
suggestions?
Street,
yes, sir.
Main Grade.
Well, I think some of it we're handling with this zoning by, I mean, if I recall how I read it, in C3, they're permitted, correct?
Correct.
So anything I-30,
Yeah, they could go in the I-30 corridor.
anything in C2, they're not permitted in C1. Anything in C2 would have to have a hearing in here with the public, so those people that Bruce is talking about would have to come to a hearing. Potentially would come to a hearing, would hear them out.
And that's our issue, is that we didn't have these in place.
Yeah, that C2 is by right, they had the right to do it.
Right.
Yes. That's what we told them. You know, they wanted to
Just like the OK Q.
do everything to try to stop it, but I said, you know, they'll sue the city if they do, so. I mean, that was a done deal, but they won't prevent, I mean, there's a lot of C2s way on down in our part of town too, that, you know, they prefer not to see it, and at least this will give them an option.
Well, I think it's like Chris says, it's more tools in the toolbox for you can.
Sure. I just
Community.
needed to tell you.
Yeah.
But don't you agree with the CU Bruce,
Oh, absolutely.
being in there, that way at least there's say from the public.
Yeah, give them.
Instead of by right.
If it's going into residential, I just, you know, if you got all that stuff into residential area, that's just, they need to have a right to say something.
Do we have any other public comment this time concerning the,
On behalf of a number of people.
wherever our agenda is, but I just lost my agenda? Concerning the commercial zoning code changes. Any comments, commissioners? Roll call vote.
Well, the only thing I'd like to say, we've allowed some, there's been some changes to the map scattered all over that matched our comprehensive plan, if we're gonna vote on it, so I'm okay with it. There's some letters that some people have been out of town that they had the opportunity to voluntarily, if it meets the comprehensive plan, I know, one to Truett today.
I think that's a really good point, if I can. I think I can lead into where I bet you're going. So there's a number that we're still working through. One thing that we should also do, and I think I'll have Colton do real quick, is just walk through. So on this map, there's another color, and that's purple. So the way we took it as admin is that we weren't going to change any residential zones to commercial without the property owner specifically saying, we want to change that and being part of the process. So we feel like it's important to be very clear what those properties are, where they are, and how they affect everything so that you understand what's happening during that rezoning.
Did we get many requests?
I believe we have around 10-ish. That's not
Yeah,
right.
we'll probably have around 10.
Oh, I did.
There's a couple down here. This is actually, was it Pine, I believe?
Yeah.
Shady Pine. That's actually Crush Liquor, will be that parcel in front of it. And behind there, some of those are going to be changing. Over here behind, I guess this is Walmart, this property here, going to be changing C1. We have a request there. This is actually the front of,
Stony Brook.
Stony Brook. There's a couple properties there we received letters for, as well as up here along Bryant Parkway. And then also down here, that's Whiting Systems. They actually came through not too long ago, and they want to change that, as well as the property next to them. They're actually asking for us to change that property as well.
And the letters that I have are other properties on the parkway that are consistent with the ones that are already.
Yes, I believe those are right in here too, in that same area there from
What's the one
Parkway
on
to
the
the
far
left.
left? Is that the
Second?
red one? Or they just zoned up there? Almost our boundary.
Over here?
Yeah.
Yeah, these are just regular C2 changed C1. They're current C2.
That's mini self-storage on Spring Hill.
Yeah, I believe both of these.
In other words. And a lot of those, just for clarification, were half lots, that the front was zoned, just like Whiting, where the front was zoned C2, but the rear of their property, to their property line was residential. Because at one point, we had a big public hearing, went back 300 feet, and just made us a brush stroke.
And I just want to bring up a couple of points. Thank you, Colin.
Good job, Colton.
And mostly it's the ones where the commercial closely abuts residential. I think obviously it's been a comment that that's something that we need to look at, and I think it's just something that as the planning department and commission we be sensitive to. And there's a few of these that do that I just feel like I need to point out. The first two are Stony Brook. So the front lots going into Stony Brook are going commercial. I think that has would have an effect on that subdivision. Obviously, they front the road. They'll meet the plan, but just wanted to make aware that that was one of the requests. And then another one is this lot, which is just west of it, 2 lots over. There is an existing commercial use there on site on the front part of it, but this is one of those scenarios that it's a half lot, but the other half of that lot goes into the residential subdivision. So once again, I think you've got a little bit, both of these are in a sensitive area right there. So I just think it's important to point those out.
they would still have, when they do a site plan, they're vacant land, so they'd have to adhere to all the setbacks and.
Right. The question would be, with any of these, is, we're hosting a public hearing right now, about these. And then, it'll also go in front of city council. But do those need to go through a rezoning process by itself, or can they be attached to this one? That's not something you have to do. All of these purple ones are just things that, if they meet with it, they can. But those were just ones. The rest of them are in very prominent commercial areas, so I felt like it was my responsibility to tell you all about at least those three.
And the purple ones are going to what? I'm sorry.
So the purple ones are going to at least some form of commercial, whatever they're requesting.
Whatever they're budget or.
Yeah, close to nearby. All the requests have made sense for the commercial use, depending on where they're at. So if they're surrounded by C2, they're requesting C2.
Most, I don't know about those two, but they're consistent with our comprehensive.
Yeah.
Is Stony Brook one?
I'm not saying that one.
Yeah.
The others that have, like one behind Crush, Parkway, others. Now, the one at Stony Brook is on Reynolds Road.
Right. So it's gonna meet that same criteria that the rest of it does.
And when they developed that, they held that out for a commercial lot because it's on the south side of the creek.
Yeah. There's a creek that separates the subdivision from the rest of that, so there is a delineation there.
What was their request on those? Was it C1 or C2?
That was C2, I believe.
I might go back to check.
Yeah, I
It
think,
might be an appropriate one to do on a C1.
Whiting wanted to, that was part of that land on Whiting property. Make a request to change it.
yeah, and that's on the list there.
I guess if we vote, my request would be, there's a few letters that you haven't received that I know are coming.
Yes, and I think that leads into the other part is that we're gonna send out the form again. We're gonna update it to meet some of the things that we talked about tonight. We're gonna send it out again, have another round of comments before planning commission meeting, and then.
So do we want to carry it on for the next meeting then, planning commission meeting, or go on these now?
Yeah. Y'all go.
Continuation of public hearing for the commercial zone coding changes.
Well, it would be, if you vote on it to go to council, it will go with your approval, so the planning commission's approval. Obviously, I think with the changes that we've talked about tonight, specifically in some of those codes, so we go through there and change those things we talked about and get more specific in those areas we wanted.
Clarify for me, if there's letters coming in related to the zoning,
Right.
or is it just the purple?
As a commission, DRC, we're only changing from one C to another C.
Right.
C2 to C3, C2 to C1. There's a lot of land in Bryant that's currently zoned RE, it's residential, that's in a commercial area. So we talked about in DRC allowing that. We didn't want to change anybody's residential to commercial as a global change, because what if we have a house on there, if they want to keep it residential?
Other ramifications.
So we allowed as a voluntary effort, if it met with our comprehensive plan, they could sign a voluntary letter to request that change to be a part of this public hearing. And so the bulk of them fit our comprehensive plan, correct?
Correct.
Most of the lot is just cleaning up lots that should have been done already, a lot of it was.
So I need clarity on whether tonight's vote includes the letter changes or excludes them.
It depends on what you want to do, or if you want to do certain ones of those, or if you don't. You do some of them, all of them, none of them. It's your choice as part of the proposal.
Why would, if it meets our plan and they wrote a letter giving us permission, why
We
would?
haven't got all the letters.
They've got letters on.
Oh,
I
well,
think-
I can tell you the areas of the two that I did. They were emailed, but they're not on the map, basically.
Yes, and I think any additional ones, if there were additional ones to come, those could go to city council and then come back to planning commission for another approval. The ones that Lance talked about are on Parkway, and they're right here, and they're the exact same requests that are happening with the other parcels of property.
But
you're talking about, if you go to city council, then it has to come back to planning commission. So.
If it needed to be for those confirmation of those letters. Or you
Well,
can
if we
choose
just
not.
put the area they're in, if you don't get them, you just don't put it on the map.
Yeah. Then they don't.
That's the only ones that I know that didn't come in.
You anticipate not getting them?
No.
Put it where they wouldn't take effect until we read the third reading went into effect. We just do, are you gonna ask for all three readings at one time?
That'll be up to the y'all's council what you want to do.
Or what they want?
Yeah.
I think,
I'm good with
I mean, if we're good with the zoning changes, I think we ask for all three readings at one time and get this CU and.
Right.
Get it done right.
Hopefully it'll be read by title only.
I would say, Truett, I mean, are there any other letters in commissioners or that Colton knows about?
No.
It's just the remaining land on the Bryant Parkway,
Where are they seeking it to be?
C2, just like.
C2.
Yeah. What is recommended?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we could get these code changes now, that would keep something else coming down the road
Right.
from being implemented that we should have caught to start with.
And if there was anybody else in the public, I mean, it's been advertised, that wanted to sign a letter, we'd accept their letters.
Yeah. That was the point of the online Google form as well. You know, that's not something that we usually do or done in the past before. Was putting that together to help you get even more public comment, understanding everything that's happening right now. And that's why we're going to do another round of it as well. We just want to, we're really trying to get as much public involvement in these decisions as we can because of their ramifications.
Got to reach out to them.
We
Any
don't
other
want,
questions?
we don't want what happened on Reynolds Road to happen.
Correct.
People wait too late to get it.
Right, that's what we need to get in the works now instead of waiting another month. So,
Well, I'm good voting. I think we're going to.
okay. Accepting commercial zoning changes as presented, and any letters come in would fall in with that category. Same thing, to go to vote yes, we'll move it on to the city council.
Yeah, and that includes the modifications that we'll make that we previously discussed tonight.
Is that okay? Roll call vote.
Mayfield,
Yes.
Burgess,
Yes.
Poe, Penfield,
Yes.
Brunt,
Yes.
Staffen,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
and Arlen.
Yes. So our commercial zoning code changes have been approved to go move forward to city council with a request for all three readings. And I think Truett.
My timeline.
I think Truett's done enough to direct us
With an emergency clause.
Did a great job, thank you. Take a motion to adjourn.
Good undertaking right there.
I thought somebody was bringing dinner.
I think this was dinner. I got